Okay, so we're talking about 10-minute topics on rehabbing. Got excuse me, I got a little bit of a cold. I'm going to be drinking some tea throughout this. So rehabbing and construction in New York, I could probably talk for an hour about. I'm going to have to cut it short at 10 minutes. The first thing you got to know is who has jurisdiction over your area. So what I mean by that is um, who has jurisdiction in that area. So in Nassau County, there are three towns: there's Hempstead, North Hempstead, and Oyster Bay, and then there's a million villages in those towns, and there are cities: City of Glen Cove, City of Long Beach. You have to know who has jurisdiction because that's the agency that you're going to have to deal with if you need permits, and that's the agency you're going to have to deal with if you're not getting permits. That may catch you and say you do need permits. So it's important to go there and check out what's on file before you do any work. Now, the reason why you want to do that, even if you're doing minimal work, before you buy something, is because you want to find out if anything was done illegally before, and most importantly, are there any open violations or open permits. The reason why you do that before you start anything is because if there are open violations or open permits, you're going to need to file a permit to get rid of that stuff. Because if you're selling the property eventually to a retail end user, they're going to run a title report and see that stuff, and they're not going to buy it from you unless that's cleared up. So the idea that I'm just going to do work without permits, which some people do, um, doesn't make sense if you're going to have to deal with the permit process at some point. Also, you need to find out what you do need a permit for. In some villages, you need a permit if you change two windows. In some villages, you don't need a permit if you're doing direct replacement. Some cities, you're just putting the plumbing fixtures back where they were. So it's important that you find out what's needed and what's there, what's open. Let me look at some other notes I made here. Okay. So the question is really, what do these building departments want? What they want is money. So some of the things we've done is file maintain permits. There's two types of permits. There's a permit you can get before you do work. It's a standard permit. You say, I'm going to put in this kitchen, here are the plans, approve it. They say, okay. They're going to do multiple inspections usually at that point. They're going to want to see a lot of things that are behind the walls. A maintain permit usually costs more. It could be extra few $100s or $1,000. But that's usually to legalize something that was done already. So that permit comes into play. Sorry, again, I recall. If you, let's say, bought a house and they have done some work, you want to legalize it. So the advantage of getting a maintain permit, the disadvantage is it costs a little more. The advantage is they're not going to usually ask you for anything behind the walls. They're not going to ask you about any plumbing behind the walls. They're not going to ask you about insulation or things behind the wall. So sometimes a maintain permit might be better to get. Speak to your municipality about what you should get. And then the question always comes up of whether you file permits or not. So again, you got to know what's legal and what's not. You got to know different areas are much more on top of their of people doing work. You got to know if the neighbors are people that are not going to be happy with you. If you should always try and keep the neighbors happy. There's certain neighbors that are never happy, right? We had a neighbor that anything we did, they called the village on us. So you have to take all those things into consideration. Obviously, if you're just painting, you don't need a permit, but almost anything else in some areas you do. So the hardest part about rehabbing, there's two hard parts. The hard part is finding a good contractor. That's a nightmare, and I could probably talk for an hour about it. The best contractors, we've blown through probably 30 contractors. Some were great when they start. When you give them one job, they are on top of it, and they are just have this dream of endless work from you. But then most of these guys are not really qualified to do multiple jobs at one time. A lot of these guys were tradesmen, so they were laborers or carpenters or some kind of specific trade person, a sheetrock guy, and then they decided to do it themselves. But very often, these guys are not businessmen. So maybe they can run one job, but when you give them two jobs at a time or three jobs at a time, they start to fall apart. They can't manage money, they can't manage their time. So do not take a new contractor and give them multiple jobs. If you take a new contractor, give them one job, ask them how many jobs you can do. They'll all say I could do it in a million, and try them with two jobs. Just try it. You got to work slowly. How to find these contractors? The best places are from referrals, people that use them, that will tell you the truth. Not this guy's amazing, he's great. Just They'll tell you the good and the bad. We have contractors, we refer to people and we tell them straight up, the guy is not going to finish the job when he tells you he will. He's good work is good. I mean, the old rule for contractors is cheap, good, and fast, right? If you can get 2 out of 3, you're in good shape. It's very hard to find all 3. So you find cheap and good, cheap and fast, but not so good. You think about it. So we have guys who are cheap and good, but they're not fast. So you have to just take that into consideration. Whenever he tells us the time, we figure it's double. And there are some guys who are just not as good, and you can use them maybe for rental grade property, but you wouldn't use them on an $800,000 property that you're going to sell to an end user because the tile work isn't going to be great. There's going to be issues. So you have to take all those things into account. So after you, assuming you have a contractor you think is going to do a good job, the hardest part is what to do and what not to do, right? When we started working, we thought we were going to be Tarek and Christina from Flip or Flop. We're going to open every property, and we did. We opened every property to make it open concept and gut renovated everything. Very often we found that the first thing the end user did when they bought the property was undo the things that we had spent a lot of money and a lot of time on. So you have to know your area. You have to know what other properties that are selling for, renovated properties are going for. But we really approach most rehab projects today is what can we not do? What can we just get done that this will get us a price that's not at the top of the market, but a little below? So very often we won't do structural work, and we'll leave a kitchen closed where we used to open it up, because there are people who don't want open concept. And open concept brings other issues, right? You need to define spaces. You're probably going to need to stage that property. Whereas if it's just a kitchen, you may not need to stage it if there's, 4 walls. So also that bathroom that maybe is not perfect but is okay, maybe you leave it if it's not the master bathroom, if it's a basement bathroom, things like that. So that's the way we looked at things now, and I think it's a much better way to approach rehabbing. Really looking at what not to do, what can be kept, what can be saved. Let me look at other properties, right? Here's a good one. Sometimes I look at renovated properties and they say it's got 4 bathrooms, but the pictures only have 2 bathrooms or 3 bathrooms. That's pretty much a giveaway that they didn't renovate the last bathroom, right? Maybe it's a basement bathroom. Maybe it's a first floor bathroom and there's already they renovated the master bathroom, the children's bathroom upstairs. Very often you can get away with that, and most people will still pay decent money for a house if the master bathroom is new, the children's bathroom is new. But if there's a basement bathroom, there's a third or another bathroom, a full bathroom on the first floor, it may not need to be renovated. One of the things we do is we reglaze a bathroom, right? So if we have a bathroom that's in good shape, but the tile is a horrible color like pink or green, those are done a lot of times. Maybe we'll change the fixtures, the toilet, the tub if we can, without ripping up the surround and the vanity, and we'll just reglaze it white. And we've done very well with that, and that's several $100s or under $1,000 instead of a $4,000, $5,000 bathroom. So we approach most rehab projects today, well, what do we not have to do? Where we used to approach them with what can we do? And I think that's very, very important if you're starting to rehab. I remember one of our first projects, there was a bathroom that was pretty good, and we didn't do it, and it killed us that we didn't really do the bathroom. But we sold the property for what we thought we would. It didn't affect anything. And we still mostly renovated almost every bathroom after that. But when we look back, that was a good indication of what we should have been doing most of the time. The bathroom's okay. Change the vanity, change the toilet. It might still work. Again, if it's not a master, if it's a master bathroom in the master bedroom, that changes things. And costing these things and figuring out how much it'll cost is a big deal. I wish there was an easy way to do it. If you have no idea what anything will cost, I would say call 5 contractors. And here's the important part. Come up with a very specific scope of work, give it to them and say, how much will this cost? Now, we can help you with that if you need to come up with a scope of work. But if you walk, what we used to do is just walk through with a contractor. We need to do this, we need to do that, we need that. And each contractor said, you might not need to do this, you might need to do that, the flooring, you might need work. We got different bids from them because they were all on different things. One contractor said, in the basement you're going to need to do something, and the other contractor didn't think so. So we weren't really comparing apples to apples. You need to come up with a scope of work with every single thing you want done, as specific as possible. Literally, the products you want him to spend on if you're going to have the contractor buy the materials, and then compare those to each other. Um, and you're going to have trouble. There's no way to avoid construction problems, right? The main issue with construction problems is unexpected things, right? And it's not contractor bait and switching you. It's a contractor who just doesn't know that when he rips out the kitchen cabinets, he's going to see that the plumbing's all screwed up. Or when he rips out, when he's trying to replace fixtures, he finds that the electrical is all screwed up. This happens all the time. Um, so that's the issue with rehabbing, which is one of the reasons why we do less rehabbing now, because every time we did rehabbing, it usually costs more and takes longer. And you have to just expect that. If contracting tells you it's going to take 6 weeks, I'd say figure 3 months. If contracting tells you it's $20,000, figure 30. It's just the way it is. But you have to tell the contractor that this is the budget, and then you're not going up unless anything really unexpected comes in. Because some contractors will lowball you, and then some contractors will lowball you and then tell you things that they should have told you before. It's not an easy thing to do, but we can help you with it if you need help, and we can we can give you estimates of what we think things will cost, and we can give you service providers, for materials, and we can even help you with contractors if you need. But the question you're always going to have is really cutting corners versus doing things amazingly, and it really depends where it is, what it is. You got to look at what comparable properties to where you're going to sell this are going for, right? If they're really done, and you might even want to go visit them, right, and see the level of work done. You can't tell from pictures. You really can't. That's why some contractors would send us pictures. It's a waste of time. You got to see it in person. The only way to know if a tile work is done right is to look at it, from different angles in the light and see, does this guy really do good tile work or not? Tile work is a big deal because if you do it wrong, it's there, and ripping it up is expensive. Painting is something you can't tell if it's really done well unless you see it up front. So take a look at contractors' work, and then you have to see, is this an area where you're going to sell a property for $300,000, or is this an area you're going to sell a property for $800,000? If you're selling a property for $800,000, the work should be really good, right? And if you're selling a property for much less, it may not matter, right? If someone is coming in for a rental grade kind of property, or you're renting it, perfect painting may not be necessary. So these are the things you got to do. You got to really do research into the area. I'd spend time going to open houses for renovated properties and seeing what people are offering and what level it is. And you can ask the realtor sometimes, or the seller, which contractor they used if you really like the work, and get an estimate from them. But rehabbing is a huge topic. Again, I could spend an hour on it. But it's something that if you're getting into rehabbing, you're going to learn as you go along, just like we did.